Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to our Money and Beliefs Power Lunch series. This is actually the video after the live class. One of the things that you should know is that I always make the live class not recorded, which allows people the privacy to share their stories honestly. And as you can imagine, money is a pretty sensitive topic. And so people really appreciated that. And we had an excellent discussion, even though it was only a half an hour, where people shared some pretty powerful stories about money. But let's just talk about kind of what I did during that half hour so that you can get it all in case you missed it. So the first thing I did was share a model to show you this idea of how our beliefs can be a self-fulfilling prophecy. So we're going to talk about two guys, Aaron and Brian, who are basically exactly the same. You could clone them, they're twins, but there is one difference they have, and that is their belief system. So they are both salespeople, and we're going to put them in the exact same situation. Aaron is a little bit nervous in this position. He doesn't like sleazy salespeople. He doesn't want to be seen as a pushy salesperson. And he feels that sales is hard and he's not very good at it, but he wants to do a good job. So he's committed to doing his best. And he goes and visits this prospect and he starts his sales pitch. And while he's there giving his sales pitch, the prospect seems to disengage. He doesn't make eye contact. He looks at his phone. He acts a little bit fidgety and distracted. So the question is, with Aaron's belief system that sales is hard and I'm not very good at it, what is Aaron going to notice when he's seeing this behavior? And often what people will, in class, I just ask people, what do you think Aaron will be noticing? And so people kind of shouted out different things. And when I do this in a classroom with a whiteboard, we use the same thing. We let people shout out kind of what they think is a natural thing. But because I'm the only one here, I'm going to just walk you through it. So most people will say, hey, if I'm Aaron, I'm going to look at this behavior and worry. I'm going to worry that the prospect's annoyed at me, that maybe I'm not doing a very good job in presenting my product or service. And as a result, I'm going to be feeling flustered and anxious, maybe a little pressured to do a better job than what I think I'm doing. I might feel embarrassed. And as a result of those feelings, I'm going to engage in some behaviors. And the range of behaviors could be really wide. I mean, not everybody who's embarrassed is going to engage in the same behavior. But when we ask people kind of what are the typical things that people do when they're flustered and anxious and feeling pressured and embarrassed, a couple of scenarios that came up in the class were one, just getting out of there, right? So I'm embarrassed. Excuse me, Mr. Prospect, this doesn't seem like a really good time for you. How about I leave and I call you some other time? Or the opposite of the spectrum. Maybe I'm feeling like I'm not doing a good enough job, so I start talking faster and I'm more animated so that I can be more interesting. So I'm really kind of pushing my energy on the prospect. And then I, of course, become the pushy salesperson I don't want to be. But either way, typically when I start interacting with the prospect in ways that channel that flustered, pressured, embarrassment, anxiety, the prospect is going to disengage even more. If I withdraw, then there's a natural disengagement there. But if I come on strong, the client may feel pressured and push back more. So in essence, what happens is just by what Aaron was most afraid of, that ends up becoming a self-fulfilling prophecy. In other words, from that sales visit, sales is hard and I'm not very good at it. Now let's look at Brian. Now Brian is the exact same as Aaron in every respect except his beliefs. And he's going to go to the exact same prospect meeting. But Brian believes that sales is easy and he's pretty good at it. He loves sales. He just thinks he's great at it and he thinks he's going to be very successful. No qualms about it. And so he gets into the prospect meeting and he has the same situation. The prospect is actually distracted and not making eye contact and looking at his phone and acting fidgety. But instead of noticing what Aaron noticed, Brian notices of something else. Brian becomes worried. He doesn't think at all that it could have anything to do with him or his product or him doing a good job or a bad job. He genuinely wonders, what's wrong with the client? Is he distracted? Is there something wrong that's going on? And because he's genuinely curious and he's really concerned and interested in what's going on with the client, what he tends to do is ask questions that reflect his curiosity. And they're genuine, authentic questions, such as, Mr. Prospect, I noticed that you seem a little bit distracted. Is this really a good time? Do you have something going on? Do you need me to stop for a few minutes? Whatever it is that he asks shows genuine interest. And however much or little the prospect cares about what Brian is selling, he'll likely re-engage in response to that genuine interest in those questions. He may tell Brian, you know what, this is actually really not a good time for me to be hearing about this product. I'm not interested and I've got so many other things to do. That can still open the door for Brian to ask other questions that maybe qualify the prospect for a future meeting, or maybe he can get some referrals, or maybe he can just build a stronger relationship. On the other hand, the client may re-engage with Brian and say, you know what, I actually am interested in hearing what you have to say, but I have this emergency that just came up down the hall. I really need to see a member of my team. If you wouldn't mind waiting in my office for 5 minutes, let me go resolve this matter and then I'll be back and then we can talk. And Brian says, sure. He sits down and waits. The prospect takes 15 minutes instead of 5 minutes, comes back, feels so grateful for Brian that Brian was patient, that he really gives him his full attention afterwards. And thus, Brian also creates a self-fulfilling prophecy for himself, that sales is easy and he's pretty good at it. So what we did in class is go through this scenario and then ask people to sort of think about how it might apply to them. Did anybody in the class, or do you have any beliefs about money or earning money that could turn into self-fulfilling prophecies, or that may have in your life been self-fulfilling prophecies? So we moved to a discussion at that point, and people shared some crazy stories. There's one other thing that we did, though, before we got into the stories, and I'm going to share my screen again here and show you the handout. Now, if you were on the registration list for this class, you will have gotten a copy to download this handout. If you were not, you can simply reach out to me and ask for the handout, and I would be happy to send it to you. In fact, I may try to remember to put it on the page under this video if I can. So that's something I'll try to make a note to myself of as well. But if for any reason you don't have the handout and you need it, don't hesitate to reach out to me via email and I'll send it to you personally. This is the handout that I sent everybody that registered for the class, and there are a lot of questions on it, but the purpose of the questions are to help you discover some beliefs that you have about money that you may not have realized were beliefs, that you may have just naturally assumed was the truth, just the way things are, and just never really thought about very closely. And so as you fill out the sheet, this will give you just some ideas on any hidden beliefs you might have about money. And then it also has the chart, the self-fulfilling prophecy chart in here that you can play with as well. We didn't have people fill this out in class because, as you can see, it's 14 questions. One of the participants in class said, Nahi, thank you so much for this handout. I spent 3 hours on it and got up to 8 pages. 8 pages of just journaling and really thinking about it got her some amazing insights. She said she wasn't very happy with the insights, but they were really clear to her, and now she can do something about them. So the handout and going through the questions really helps you get an idea of how you could have some beliefs related to your ability to make money, or just about money in general that could be influencing you. And if the general concept of beliefs all turning into self-fulfilling prophecies is true, then that gives you an idea of what beliefs that you have that you might want to change. So there was a third part to this discussion beyond the sharing. So there was some amazing sharing. And if you ever want to participate in that, come to the live ones, because I don't record them so people can actually share their stories and talk. But the last thing that I shared with people is that if you want to change a belief, there's a process that we take you through. So let's say you have a belief that there's never enough money, and you want to change that to there's always more than enough money. It doesn't have to be an opposite, but let's just say for the purposes of this example, the way you change a belief is you open yourself up to noticing new things, because what we really do is the process starts with what we notice. Our beliefs dictate what we notice in the world. So if we believe there's never enough money, the things we're going to notice are things that support our belief that there's never enough money. So we will notice that the roof is leaking as soon as we have $1,000 extra in our savings account. And now we're going to have to spend $2,000 to fix the roof or something like that. If we think we spend too much, we're going to notice all the things that we overspent on. If we think we're good savers, we're going to notice all the ways that we saved. So the idea is, what do I want to believe? Do I want to believe that there's always more than enough money for everything I need? If that were true, what would I be noticing? I might be noticing that, we have plenty of money for groceries this week. I might be noticing that my savings account continues to increase every month. I might be noticing that I'm budgeting well. So you don't have to notice everything in the world, but if you start paying attention to the things that line up with what you want to believe, you're going to notice things that always were there, but you might just not have paid attention to or given much weight to in the past. And that's how you begin the process of changing a belief. What happens is that once your brain starts seeing evidence for this new belief, it goes through a learning process, and it realizes, oh, wait, this is true, and this is true, and this is true, and they all support this belief. So as you start relaxing into this idea that this belief is true, you start interpreting things different, your emotions are different, the way you behave is different, and then the way the world responds to you in response is also different. And that's how it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. This is not a process that happens quickly. It takes time. Anybody that tells you that you can change your beliefs like that, in my opinion, aren't telling you the truth. It takes a while to do it, but it can be done. It can be done with consciousness and awareness. So I've given you all the pieces for the first steps, and we may be doing some more things around changing your beliefs about money in our group sessions next year. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to this. And as always, don't hesitate to reach out to me directly if you have any questions at all.